Check 1 2, check 1 2. Check 1 2, check 1 2. What up, love? Peace, peace. Where is everybody at? Yeah, that's about right. People always late. Good morning, happy fluffy one. Smooth gods in the house. Alright. Couple more people and we get this on and popping. Well, while we're waiting, today's topic is the Elixir of Immortality and Vampyre sex magic. So hopefully we go on in. Yeah, it just came out. So, I had to cop one quick to get my hat quick. Add to my collection of about, let's see, I think 50 New York Yankee. I think I got like 40 Yankee hats, a couple Giant hats, a couple Knicks hats. I ain't got New York Ranger hats yet, but that's most of what I got. It is crispy. Fresh out the, well, it ain't no box, but fresh out the store. All right, let's get this on and popping. When people show up, they show up, but they don't, they don't. Not my loss. True that. Well, I have to reflect Florida. sunny here a lot, so I'm reflecting Florida. All right, let's get this on and popping. What is the elixir of immortality? Many people have heard this for centuries. It's been passed down through folklore, been passed down through the occult. It's been passed down from generation to generation. What is the elixir of immortality? Well, it depends what system or what civilization you go to. If you deal with ancient Kemet, they dealt with this elixir of immortality. It has been said that within the white crown and the red crown was an elixir of immortality that the pharaoh would wear, and they would drink from that at times to extend their immortality. If you go into the Dravidian or Indian occult system, that elixir of immortality is known as Amrita and Soma. In ancient Kemet, it was also known as, some would call it the Mahfuzet. Okay, this elixir of immortality has been searched for, and people have been trying to find forever, but it has been right in front of our face this whole time. What do I mean by that? Well, the red crown and the white crown in Kemet is symbolic of not just Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. It was symbolic of the feminine principle, masculine principle coming together. The red crown was symbolic of, yes, you guessed it, the menstrual blood. The white crown was also symbolic of semen. In essence, when the two combined and the ruler became master, he became master over the masculine and feminine principle, masculine and feminine sexual fluids, masculine and feminine bodily fluids, and master to utilize it and use it in any which way, but particularly to extend their lifespan on this planet, or in what in Kemet they consider the afterlife, and how to extend their life. Now, to be able to do this, you cannot be afraid of sex. Unfortunately, I know some individuals who seem to run from sex or are scared of sex. But in reality, peace, dark light, in reality, let me see, how can I put it? You are birthed or a result of sex, so why would you refrain from sex? See, this is the old philosophy wrestle. In certain Dravidian aspects, you have, I'm sure a lot of us love sex, D, but in certain systems, like in Tantra, in the Dravidian Vedic systems, they have a modern day form of Tantra that has emanated for over 1,000 years now of abstination or abstaining from sex. Then you have one of the older systems, Vama Marga, which, if y'all haven't done the research, go do the research. I'll put the spelling into the chat room. Vama Marga. All right, we're going to address if folks have a sex partner or not, because there's a way, if you would like a sex partner, there's a way to get that using your sorcery or magic. Trust me, it'll work quick. But anyways, here we go. So Vama Marga was the act of utilizing sex to transcend the constraints and bondages of being a human being. Meaning what was considered taboo was the thing to do in Vama Marga. So, in other words, if in your mind, let's say, a threesome is taboo, In Vampyre, they would enact and participate in a threesome to bypass the constraints and conditioning and programming of society in order to bring birth to a truer self. Their belief was that what holds us back is the programming, conditioning, and control of society from allowing our true self to experience life in its totality, to be able to then not be restrained by all of our desires. So their philosophy was to partake in the desires, so the desires do not have a hold on you as they do today. Now, some people may say, yeah, but I just, I meditate my desires away. Bullshit. Okay. You can meditate day and night. And some masters will even attest to this in certain cultures. If you don't do the alchemical work, the spiritual work within to overcome your issues, your traumas, your pains, and things of that nature, you're only suppressing or repressing those things that can be very detrimental to you. So, yeah, the Agori are very similar to aspects of Vampyre. Some of them practice Vampyre. They actually are a sect that came out of the tradition of Vampyre Tantra. All right. So, in essence, to really find out the elixir of immortality, you have to not be afraid of sex. You have to not run from sex. You have to not have Puritan views of sex, which I mean, Puritans were one of the first religious groups that came here to America, and whether people really realize it or not, they affect a lot of the programming of society in America. Their wane is reducing, but this is where a lot of the censorship and things of that nature came back from the past. Is that Puritan mentality? Now people are starting to break free from that, but it still holds some people in this belief that to have sex, you have to be married. Marriage, my peoples, is a system of control. What do I mean by that? Well, if I produce the programming that you should marry, it's a system of birth control. If I have sex without the constraints of marriage, then population might boom a little more because there's more children to be born from more different people. It's a system of control. I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. That's your personal judgment. I'm just saying this is what marriage has been. This is why the system of marriage has failed for so many, because we don't deal with reality. For example, people are in marriage and they expect their husband or their wife to not ever look at another human being that exists on this planet. Just because you're married, I'm supposed to not look at this female. Okay, there's a problem with that. I have a problem with that. One, the problem is if your man is not looking at a female or females, then what is he looking at? See, that's a question you have to ask. What is he looking at if he's not looking at a female? So you got to check that somewhere and really, really keep that in mind. Secondly, you should not be threatened by a man looking at another female. That means he still has a pulse. He's still human. He still has human desires and tendencies. Shouldn't be a threat to you. The only way it's a threat is if you're insecure or you doubt your own abilities or potential sexually, physically, or whatever the case may be. So if you are threatened by any of those things, then you might need to check yourself within your relationship and ask your partner or partners, however y'all get down, it's y'all shit, and say, what's the real deal? You should be able to be open and honest about marriage, about your sexuality, and never be made to feel ashamed of your sexuality for whatever reason. So back to the elixir of immortality. So in Kemet, this is how they looked upon it. In India, they looked upon it as the Amrita and the Soma. Who the hell just put an Indian sex video up here? Ah, my goodness, these people. Anyways, so that's the reality. Now, how do you partake in the sexual fluids? Well, in any deep occult studies, especially in certain occult groups, they understand that one of the most potent and powerful forms of sexuality. Look, man, whoever keeps putting this Indian sex shit, you about to get blocked because you irritate me, son. All right, one is enough. Jesus. So, anyways, the reality is this. Back to this because I'm getting distracted from this bullshit. So let me just keep my mind focused. Reality is this: if you want to partake, you cannot be afraid, especially of oral sex. Okay? If you really want to taste the Amrita or the Mafuzet, you have to be able to perform oral sex. You have to not be afraid of oral sex because in there you'll find the Amrita. However, brothers and sisters, you have to be sure that the person is clean. What do I mean by that? Okay. If you really are about your work and you're trying to do this alchemical process, find the Amrita within the sexual fluid of a female or that with the semen of a man. These mother effers cannot be hoes laying around. I'm talking about the man sleeping around with 1,000 people, and then you think that you're going to get some miraculous power and miraculous energy because you tasted his fluid. What you're probably going to get is a bunch of poison to screw you up in totality. That's what people have to understand. When you are on this work, you have to make sure that your partner is clean. You have to make sure your partner has not had excessive partners sexually within the last 6 months or year. You just can't be like, oh, I found someone, so I'm gonna just get straight to the point. Hell no. Make that mother effort purify, detox, cleanse, drink a lot of water, all kinds of stuff. I understand horniness can consume you, but if you don't have the discipline to control your horniness, this may not be the work for you. You have to make sure they're clean. Now, Indians have known that the miracle of conception occurs through the union of male and female vital fluids, semen, as well as the sexual fluid of a female and uterine blood. With early Tantrism, these proactive or procreative fluids came to be conceived as power substances for the ultimate identification with the gods and goddesses, whose boundless energy was often portrayed as sexual in nature. These gods and goddesses were found within yourself. You are a reflection of them. Nearly always, the god in question was some form of Shiva, who, by the way, to this very day, the worship of the linga, the phallus, still is in existence and dates back all the way to about the 2nd century BC. So, yes, my peeps, people have been worshiping the penis for a long time. All right. The way to becoming a second Shiva for this has nearly always been the goal of tantric practice in its various forms. In early tantrism, many realized that through the conduit of a horde of wild goddesses, which the tantrikas or tantrikas identified with their human consorts, were generally known as yoginis or yoginis. These bliss-starved goddesses, attracted by offerings of mingled sexual fluids, would converge into the consciousness of the practitioner to transform him or her through their limitless libido into a god on earth. Yes, you became a god on earth through the consumption of this sexual fluid and learning to cultivate that sexual fluid and then exchanging that sexual fluid with the ones that they call the yoginis, which would be females who have mastered themselves, cultivated their sexual energy, and knew how to get busy to bring that out. Okay? Now, it has been said that many women have never experienced an orgasm. And I will venture to say, and I know some brothers will testify to this, that many men have not experienced an orgasm. We've experienced ejaculation or busting a nut or skeeting or whatever effing hell you want to call it. But many men have never experienced a full body orgasm as well. Because nowadays, sex has just been a straight smashing thing and has been the part of raising your kundalini, raising the height of sensitivity in your body has been taken away because we want to get straight to smashing. We want to get straight to just knocking them, whatever. Anyways, that's another side note. Following the brilliant 10th through 11th century reconfiguration of Trika Kalism by Abhini Vagupta and others, most of the messy parts of Tantric, at least outward practice, were cleaned up, asceticized, and internalized by different ways. For the later high tantric schools, the cult of the yoginis and the ritual production offering, consumption of sexual fluids were continued, but only within constricted context of the secret practice of an inner circle of initiates. Outwardly, however, ritual sexuality had undergone a paradigm shift. Sexual fluid themselves were no longer the way to Godhead. Rather, it was in the bliss of sexual orgasm that one realized God consciousness for oneself. Now, this is important because the real teaching went inward, meaning it went underground on how to utilize the sexual fluid, sexual consumption, okay, to empower yourself, to give birth to the true God, the true self, you on earth, to give yourself an extended life. It went inward or underground into certain groups. And then outwardly, they had a new paradigm or new teaching that came out to basically keep the secret from the masses. But in other words, give them some fluffy thing outwardly, but keep the secrets from the masses. So this is what has happened in modern day times where people have been given a version of sex that is for control, that is for suppression, repression, but those within certain circles know the truth of what is really essential within. So, that being said, in certain cases, all such transactions involving sexual fluids became wholly internalized and incorporated into the so-called subtle body. Here, all humans were viewed as essentially androgynous, and sexual intercourse an affair between a female serpentine nexus of energy, generally called the Kundalini, and a male principle identified with Shiva. Some call it the black serpent and the red serpent, both of which were located within the subtle body. An intricate metaphysics of subtle body is its relationship to the brute matter of the gross body as well as to the universal divine life force within. The bipolar dynamics of its male and female constituents, etc., was developed in every tantric school. All right. There's three main schools that came out of this during this time. One of them were known as the Nath Siddhas, Nath, N-A-T-H. From there, the cities and the Jivan Mukti were the direct results of the internal combination and transformation of sexual fluids into Amrita, the divine nectar of immortality. All right? So, this divine nectar is still found within. One of the things I was taught years ago, walking with certain teachers, was that the more you cultivate your body, that if you eat a healthy diet, healthy balanced diet, you exercise, you don't just bust off at any chance you get, you don't just sleep around at any chance you get. That doesn't mean enjoy your desires. That means learn to balance your desires, because there's a principle in sex magic that is taught, especially in left hand path sex magic: pleasure and pain. The more pleasure you have, the more pain you have. You have to learn to balance the pleasure with the pain, because for every sexual act, there's a pleasure filled with it, there's a pain that comes from it. When you learn to balance those two, you learn to be more in control of your sexuality. So, in other words, you know that the pain's coming. How do you reduce the pain? Okay, this is the alchemical process on the left-hand path that one has to figure out. Because when you start to transcend the pain, then you start to understand the pleasure. You start to make connection with your more true self than at any point. So, for another word, the path of the Indian tantrics involves the hypocrisy of the human condition itself. The misery and pain is a way of bringing insight into the practitioner. In the context of the work in question, the Luciferian or Vampyre uses similar methods, not to transform the consciousness into some exterior divine gab, rather to strengthen and transform consciousness into an isolate spirit, you becoming the god. To bring light, which is symbolic of intellect, in the path of forbidden sex magic, you must awaken the Shakti, the Kundalini, through exploring your darkness and the beast that lies within each of us. Through that path, do you ascend as a light bringer, or bringing intellect into your darkness to not just illuminate that darkness, to have understanding of that darkness, to confront that darkness, to master that darkness, empower yourself through the darkness, and use the darkness in your work. So when you deal with vampiric or Luciferian sex magic, it comes from, its essence comes from Bhama Marga, but it is not for the perverse or for the sake of just perversity. It is not for the sake of just wilding out. It is utilized as a transformative state derived from the opposite path, that is, of the vampiric mind. Seek therefore spiritual liberation through the darkness offered here. Find the light, which is your intellect, which you have always yearned for. So make note of that. Some people will say, okay, well, I want to just get into this, and it seems so powerful and seems so strong, but they haven't even learned to control, or even much less encounter or face their desires. You have to be able to understand what your desires are. You have to not be afraid of your desires, and you have to be willing to do something about it. I know some sisters have had dreams. Just on a side note, some sisters have had dreams of other females, and they want to encounter in a sexual act with another female. And I asked them, sounds nice, but what are you doing about it? Like, you can dream about that all day and night, but the more you dream about it and not act upon it, the more it's going to torture you. The more it's going to just seep further into your mind and cause more of your desires to rise up. So what do you do about it? Well, first of all, you have to be smart about what you're about to do. You have to be intelligent and have your intention in detailed manner before you encounter or take steps into what you desire. In other words, if your intention is not clearly detailed, you're leaving holes open for anything to come through. Example, you can have a desire and your intention is that as a brother, you want to meet a fine ass female, brown skin, dark brown skin, curvy, you know what I'm saying? Nice breasts, big booty, the whole nine, toned up, everything. But you'll be like, yeah, but I made my intention for my ritual when I just told you what I said, and I'll tell them, I say, yeah, but you're missing something. You told me what you wanted her to look outwardly. But what you didn't use in your ritual is you didn't intend that you wanted her to have a freaking sound mind, that she can't be crazy, okay? That she can't be possessive, controlling, etc., etc. All you did was intend physical appearance. You didn't intend what comes with that physical appearance. And then you get crazy woman and you wondering why, okay, I got what I wanted, but why the hell all this came with it? Because you weren't detailed. Sisters, same thing goes with you when you do these rituals and you're trying to attract the man to you. Be detailed. Do not leave holes open because you're going to get a crazy dude coming through. You'll get the physical appearance you want. That's dandy. But the physical is only so far in sex magic. That is used to arouse you. But there has to be more to that in sex magic than just the physical appearance and whole that arouses me. You have to understand what you're doing, because once those fluids are interchanged or passed through, you are basically assimilating everything that man or female has within themselves. What does that mean? Well, when you're having sex, okay, it's like a pumping action. A man, let's say if he's on top, the whole time he's thrusting. So his body fluids, and I'm not just talking about sexual fluids, that's an ejaculation. I'm talking about body fluids, sweat, all kinds of stuff is happening and passing through you. Okay? The more he pumps into you, the further deeper it goes into you. The further deeper it goes into you, the more you assimilate that man's DNA. When you assimilate this man's DNA, if this man is screwed up, meaning he got some treacherous stuff that you have no idea about. This guy could be a serial killer, but you have no idea because he looked good. You understand me? And you assimilate it, and then you wonder why 2 months later you acting cuckoo yourself. You got some violent thoughts. You got some aggression coming out you, but you was never like that before this dude. So be real in your intentions. Be detailed in your intentions, as much detail as possible. Even if it came down to putting the shoe size, I'm telling you, it will help you. Because anything you don't put in your intention as detailed as possible, it leaves the door wide the fuck open to come through for crazy woman or crazy man to come and screw you up. Okay? So be real about that. Now, consciousness, as defined in the Varma Marga, is the realization that all must join with the absolute by experiencing the pain and pleasure of this world of flesh and spirit. However, as a Luciferian or Vampyre, we consider that the consciousness should not be joined with the absolute. That's some fluffy shit. The devouring principle is the absolute. It devours you. It takes you away from your growth, transformation, identity to becoming fluffy and mixed in with everybody. And we're just going to hold hands and kumbaya, kiss each other, and just somehow ascend somewhere. No. Rather, we separate and transform into our true self. Some will call it the higher self, holy guardian angel, whatever fuck you want to call it. That's all good. Your true self and your therionic or your beast-like self. The two must merge. See, people do a lot of work and they be like, oh, I want to reach my true self and I'm going to be this true self and I'm just going to be so divine and so lovely. You forget you have another part of your nature that is ticking along and clicking along and walking along with this whole absorption and obsession you have with the higher self. It's the beast. Your beast side is walking with you at the same time in the shadows, But we don't realize that because we don't give light or intellect into the shadow, so it's there, walking along. Well, we're all obsessed with my true self, my higher self, and the self is divine. And I love myself. Let me touch my nipple self. Listen, sounds good, but your beast-like nature is also walking along with you, causing havoc from within. It's not out there, some beast following you going, "Rrr." No, it's a beast that's walking along with you, that's within you, that has always been there. And sometimes it's even self-created and fueled and fed more by our fears, our doubts, our insecurities, our pains, traumas, wounds, etc., etc., etc. Perversions, you name it, it's there. And it's feeding off of that, getting stronger. So while you over there higher selfing, your beast selfing is wreaking havoc and causing stuff, and you wonder why I don't get results. My results don't exactly come out right when I do my rituals or things of that nature. Well, your beast is wreaking havoc, buddy. All right. Consciousness. Now, next week I'm gonna do this class because somebody asked me to do this, and I think it's for our time. I'm gonna take this excerpt here from this book. By the way, before I forget, this book, okay, before I forget, this book is called The Damu, which is basically the Luciferian sex magic or vampiric sex magic, okay? But I'll put the full title out at the end of the class. Don't let me forget. However, from here, and I totally agree with this, and I have my own thoughts on this as well. Consciousness is the point of awake and existent in the world around you. This, however, does not define being aware of the self on any particular level. Let me say that again. Consciousness is the point of being awake and existent in the world around you. However, this does not define being aware of the self on any particular level. See, the problem is that people swear they're conscious because they've read 1,000 books. But that's just being aware of the world you live in, the world around you, things that you see, that you interact with. It has nada, zippo, nothing to do with the self, particularly your true inner self. Real consciousness is awakening the part of the self that has been laying dormant, that has not been attended to, the shadow self. This is what real consciousness is. And through the working of sex magic, through utilizing the elixir of immortality, you can get there. Okay? You can get there. The Luciferian who seeks the concept of spiritual immortality must have the thirst for continued existence, meaning the thirst for your immortality. Who said you have to die? Now, people can argue with me day, night, week, month, year, etc., 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 and I will never, ever accept anything they tell me when they say I have to die. Religion told me that. Hell, even the ancient Cometians told me that. The Aztecs, the Mayans. Somewhere along the line, we accepted death as a reality, then accepting that you have the ability to change your fate. When your mind power increases, you find the way to perpetuate your existence to be eternal. Now, that may sound crazy to some. Fine. That means you just accept the reality that death is finality. Real people on the left-hand path don't seek death. They seek immortality. They seek to transform the inevitability of death. So this is why they try to raise their consciousness. So even if the physical body dies, their consciousness is isolate. It is retained, and they can retain that consciousness after the physical body ceases to exist. So just keep that in mind. This work, Elixir of Immortality, sex magic, is the work of immortality. It's not just the. Anyways, whatever. The Luciferian, the Vampyre can use yoga, Buddhism. They can use what the hell they want to use for the practice of control, self-control, and development. However, we're not those religions, meaning you could use those principles, you could use those systems, but you are not controlled by those systems. You just use them for self-development and control over yourself, but you're not those philosophies and totality and, oh yes, I believe in the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishad. No, fuck that. All right, anyways. To achieve control and destroy the mind into concepts of oneness of God is self-hate. Listen to this closely. I'm going to repeat this again. To achieve control and destroy the mind into the concept of oneness or oneness with God, the Almighty, Allah, Yahweh, Jehovah, the Eternal, the universe, all this dumb shit, is self-hate. The Vampyre or the Luciferian recognizes divinity within, seeking to materialize it and refine consciousness becomes what H.P. Lovecraft called Azothoths or Azothoths or Azothoth, point of magic self, which is the beginning and end of all things. Now, working the vampiric or Luciferian way of sex magic, let's focus on this. 1. Self-transformation through the gnosis or knowledge of the adversary. 2. Self-deification of the core essence of the self. Before initiation, a sense of something more, a hunger for knowledge, a hunger for immortality, a hunger for transformation must be there. During and beyond, the core essence being similar to devouring serpent, the immortal demon, reflecting the illumination of the fallen ones, divinity with the knowledge and power of darkness and self-godhood. Lastly, awakening the Shakti or the Kundalini to rise up through each chakra, piercing and illuminating it with the golden fire of wisdom and perception, understanding and becoming familiar with the demonic feminine within the workings of Shakti, or initiates, or the daughters of Kali, or Lilith, or Sekhmet, or Heteru. All right? Now, understand this. I'm going to go back to this. If you're not willing, brothers, to eat pussy, yeah, I said it, you're shortening yourself. Give me every excuse in the book. I ain't trying to hear it. I done heard some idiots, some conscious coons even say, oh, well, the white man taught us how to eat pussy. What? Excuse me? The who taught us to do what? But yet we're the original. Yeah, this is what they say. The Nubians, blacks, the melanated, the whatever, are the originals. If you're original and you're the original God who civilized this planet, how the fuck can they teach you anything? See, you see how stupid this sounds? Oh, they're the original. We're the original everything. But the white man taught you how to eat pussy. Damn shame. I tell you, people don't even check themselves on their own philosophies, theories, and consciousness. They just spit out garbage, regurgitate bullshit, and don't even listen to themselves. If you're the original, you have to have done everything there was before the Caucasian was even on the scene. There's even depictions in Kemet on certain tombs and walls of a brother. And I've even heard this stupid shit before, that white people taught us how to do it doggy style. Fucking bullshit. There's even depictions in ancient Kemet of Hatshepsut getting smashed from the back, okay, by one of her soldiers or servants. So don't give me that BS, people. All right? They didn't teach us a damn thing. If anything, we taught them, then it was repackaged, given back to us in some fucked up way. Just like in hip hop. Hip hop is all shit. Okay, it was started by Black and Latinos were there from the beginning, particularly Puerto Ricans. It was there. Okay, and what happened is all these styles that are coming back, all these fucking Adidas shell toes and Pumas and Reeboks and Filas, all them shits was around in the late 70s, 80s, 90s. What they do is they take away our gazelles, they take away all these styles, they make it seem like it's out of fashion. Then they come back, put it out, and then you paying $1,200 for some shits that was $50 back in the days. Stupidity at its finest, baby. Stupidity at its finest. But this is what we do. We let go of our shit, or we give it to them. If they wait till the shit dies down, they repackage it, and it comes back to us. And then we fucking run and buy the shit up as if it's something new. Bullshit. Look, I was there, okay? I have family members that were there when hip hop was beginning, so called in the 70s, late early 70s. There's no real one person who started. I don't give a fuck if they say Cool Herc. It's bullshit. Okay? Because in Bronxdale, in the areas of Soundview, there was another DJ who was supposedly out before Cool Herc doing the shit. So all I care about is it came out and we utilized it, created a culture out of it, and then we pimped it, sold it out, and now we got it back. It's so watered down, so deteriorated, it's disgusting. Anyways, keep moving. I'm getting passionate about that shit because I've been in hip hop since fucking I can remember. Anyways, so that's the elixir of immortality. Women, if you want the elixir of immortality too, make sure that this man is clean before you give him oral sex. Make sure you know his sexual background, his sexual history, because you can poison yourself messing with the wrong dude. I don't care how fine, sexy, toned, cut, muscular, whatever you want. Look past the flesh. Look into his actions, his history, and all those things. Then know what to do next. All right? When you do this, particularly for the brothers, when you're giving oral sex, please, 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 listen, listen. Do not be afraid of the vagina. Do not be afraid of the clitoris. Y'all lick it just to make a woman wet. You don't eat it to give her an orgasm. I know not all of y'all. Some of y'all are masters probably of this stuff. I'm talking about to the ones that just go, and then they scared, like they run from it, like, oh no, I'm afraid to touch it. Like, oh, what is this? What do I do? Nigga, listen. It's like you gotta make love to it. Understand? You gotta put passion behind it. And I don't mean gobble it up and chew on it. No, nigga, that's stupid. Be passionate. Lick it. You give a little suck, but not suck it like you're sucking it dry, okay? Never blow into the vagina. That causes health problems, by the way. You dumbasses who are doing that, cut that dumb shit out, all right? Anyways, so be gentle. There's a movement in Tantra, Black Tantra. It's called the Golden Lotus, okay? There's a certain particular move and movements you do to help the woman ejaculate. I'm not gonna put that shit. If you want to know, email me, because I'm not gonna just share that shit out here. Then everybody out here golden lotusing and screwing it up for everybody. No, sorry, don't work like that. But anyways, you have to do that, sisters. Please, this is not a popsicle, okay? Where you can dig your teeth in and scratch the shit out of the vagina. I mean, out of the penis. Please, the shaft is sensitive. Yeah, just because it's hard does not mean the shit is fucking, not sensitive. It's very sensitive. So if you're using your teeth and fucking scraping this shit, it's gonna hurt. All right? Use more lips than teeth. I'm just saying. Just saying. All right? Just saying, sisters. You want to be a master of everything. Master that shit too, because if you learn to do these things properly, you raise the kundalini. You help them raise the kundalini while they're receiving pleasure, helping each chakra activate, helping reach up to the crown, which is the goal. ultimate goal is to reach the crown chakra. But you're not going to do that in 1 second flat. It takes time, so it's almost like foreplay, gentle, build up, a little more tension, build it up. That's the key. Now, I haven't even been reading none of the stuff y'all say because I know y'all went extracurricular on me. All right? I know y'all went extracurricular, so ooh, that sounded like it hurt. That sounded like it hurt. Somebody bit her clitoris. Boy, I would have smacked. Listen, if I was female, I would have punched that dude, smacked him, sliced him, the whole nine. All right, so let's open up questions right now. Let's open up some questions. Any questions? I didn't go too deep into this because I'm formulating more stuff to bring, to go deeper, to have a curriculum. So I just went to a certain point level. So bring the questions now. I'll sit here till y'all start bringing the questions. I know y'all got questions, please. Yes, move the god. It is very possible to do sex magic without the other person on. As a matter of fact, sometimes utilizing vampire magic, sometimes you don't always have to let the partner know. However, if you're going to do that, like I said, make sure your partner's clean, make sure you know their sexual history, make sure all that. They don't have to be fully invested or involved or even know you're performing sex magic. But you need to know their history, their background, all that stuff before you go deeper into sex magic with that individual. All right, Miss Fluffy Happy. How are two people to discuss this before engaging in sex? Simple. You sit down and you say, I want to practice sex magic. This is what sex magic is. This is what sex magic isn't. This is what it's for. And then both parties either agree or disagree. And that's the easiest way. Just be open, honest, and upfront with it. Any other questions? Okay, Cece, I just saw that shit. All right. I don't like the way sperm tastes. Can I just get some milk and put sea salt in it? That's some crazy shit right there. Anyway, you can do it. Listen, 9 times out of 10, if you don't like the way sperm tastes, that dude is toxic. It's the reason why his ish tastes like that. He's toxic. Period. If you taste the dude's stuff and it tastes acidic, he's toxic. A man's sperm is usually more alkaline, and a woman's inner vagina, the uterus, and her fluids are more acidic to bring a balance. Okay? And it has to be, a woman has to have slightly acidity to destroy bacteria that doesn't belong there. Okay? So if he tastes like straight doo-doo, okay, or straight extracurricular salty, 9 times out of 10, that dude nasty. I'm telling you, his internal is nasty. I don't care how his like external looks. His internal is jacked up. Okay? So put him on a diet. So I put him on a diet. Make sure he eats a lot of salads, a lot of fruits, but as well as that he eats a healthy, balanced meal. Okay? And in time, it should change. Have him detox, full body detox. and that will change the taste of the semen. All right, you're not tasting the sperm because the sperm is little. You're actually swallowing the sperm. You're tasting the semen, which is the fluid that the sperm sits in. Okay, so the semen has to change. If he really wants to work this with you, or he loves you, Kayla, I don't know the situation. Put him on a diet. Period. Say no sex for you. Damn, I can't even believe I'm saying this. But anyway, say no sex for you for at least 3 months till you get this shit right. Because I'm tired of tasting this nastiness on you. And you go from there. Period. That's the best thing I can tell you. Any other questions? Oh, let me say this. I just remembered this. Do not think just because the female got wet that that's the elixir of mortality. That's not the elixir of immortality. The elixir is when she orgasms. That which comes out is considered the amrita. Okay? That's the elixir of immortality. So let me clarify that in case it was misunderstood. It's just not getting her moist or wet, it is actually causing her to orgasm. To do that, you have to be willing to master and study the art of, well, some call it cunnilingus, eating, vag, whatever. You have to master that. You have to be willing to take time to really master that and go within to the art of it. Okay? So it's just not the liquid. It's not just what's getting her moist. It's actually having her orgasm is where the amrita is found at. The intention held is whatever you intend it to be. I cannot tell you what your intention is. I choose to be happy. It's whatever you want your results to be, whatever you are trying to accomplish. That's your intention. Meaning, for example, let's say in sex magic, you're trying to receive consciousness. Well, you should intend prior to that you're going to utilize the amrita to alter your state of consciousness and reach a higher state of consciousness through the act of oral sex, through the act of coitus or intercourse. Okay? You have to intend that prior to this. You have to prepare for this. It just not always a spontaneous thing. Sometimes you have to take preparation, a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever. It sometimes involved heavy preparation, heavy visualization, and heavy intention with great detail. It's not just a quick thing. So let's say you want consciousness. Well, there's mantras you can do to build this up. Okay? There's a mantra to do that helps with occult knowledge. Okay, to raise up your occult knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Okay, that's the one right there. You can do that mantra for a few weeks before the actual act of intercourse. And then, as the time comes, you are already consciously aware and prepared that you're trying to reach a altered state of consciousness through raising up that female kundalini within your partner, or the kundalini within your male partner, and that the sexual fluid contains the elixir to cause immortality, but also consciousness. And then, as the time comes, that day happens, you will be there because you've prepared for this. It's not just like, oh, you coming over in 30 minutes? Oh shit, let me chant, let me do this, let me do that. So 9 times out of 10, it's just gonna end up being a nut. I'm just saying, you're just gonna bust one off. It's usually what it's going to be like. All right. All right. So, any other questions? I'll take a couple more questions. Oh, wait. I saw one right here. Okay, brother. Smooth guy. What to do when a woman on the period? I'll put it like this. That is actually one of the best times to perform sex magic. The problem is, in the society we live in, the culture, the religion that we were raised in, the menstrual cycle is made to seem like doo-doo. It's made to seem like evil. It's made to seem like wrong. How is it wrong when a woman's in a state of natural detoxification and cleansing? It's not wrong. It's just that we've been made to seem that. But in actuality, the woman's spiritual and vibrational frequencies tend to be higher sometimes. There's two times a woman's spiritual frequencies and vibrations are very high. One, when she has a menstrual cycle, and two is when she is very fertile, or what some call her ovulation cycle. Okay, which usually can happen from 5 days to 14 days after her period has finished. So the Amrita is even more potent if you're not afraid to give oral sex while she's on her menstrual cycle. It's actually more potent, so you can do that. But if you have to build up to that if you're not used to it. So one thing to do if you're not used to it is when she's on her menstrual is concentrate on the clitoris more than just also the other parts that are down low. Okay, the lips or the labrum as they call it. Things that you have to be able to just concentrate on that till you're brave enough to go and give a little oral satisfaction further down. Just being real. All right. Also, what exactly is internal ejaculation? How useful is it in tantra, and how can it be achieved? All right. I'm gonna be real with you. Also, for some individuals, internal ejaculation is considered the task at hand, the ultimate. Internal ejaculation is raising up. Okay, I'll give you the example. Is when you're at the moment of external ejaculation, physically ejaculating, you learn to lock the muscles that allow the ejaculation to happen. And then what you do is you reverse the flow of that ejaculation and bring it back up. And it raises back up into your body, back up into the crown area, pineal area. And it's supposed to give you a lot of energy and things of that nature. Now, here's the problem with that. You have two schools of thought. Okay? One is that you shouldn't ejaculate, the other one is you should ejaculate. Most of these schools of thoughts come from India. They don't come from Kenya. They don't come from Africa. Okay? In many systems in Africa, we did not hold back our ejaculation and bring it inside. In many schools in Africa, we realized that when you release that sexual fluid, that elixir of immortality is actually more beneficial for you. Now, some people say, oh, well, that will deplete you. Depends, because if you take that energy, you build it up, eventually you're building up too much energy and it can backfire on you. So it has to come a time where you have to release it in order to balance your body out and not bring it into a higher state of, let's see, a higher state of energy that can be detrimental. This is why you have to look. You have to be able to say, okay, who created this system? Who created this philosophy? And how is it closely related to me? I'll give you an example because I know who the brother also is. I'll give you an example. In China, there's also different philosophies. You have the Taoist philosophy. Okay, the Taoist philosophy was the jade dragon, green dragon, and the white tigress. I'm gonna explain this. The jade dragon would connect with the white tigress, and they will work sexual acts without him ejaculating. Okay, but she would also go find a green dragon, which was younger, which was youthful individual, a lot of energy, and she would uh, have sexual acts with that individual, take that energy and bring it back to her jade dragon to help him continue building his energy, feed him that elixir of immortality so he could become more immortal. And some jade dragons would eventually ejaculate, some wouldn't. It depends on the school, it depends on the philosophy, and it depends on you. Me, on the left hand path, we ain't holding shit back. Okay? We understand that you cultivate, you raise that energy, then you ejaculate that energy. Okay? Because we understand the more you repress, the more you suppress, the more you resist, the more it will persist, the worse it gets. Your desires become too intense, and they can backfire on you, causing you to do absurd things to release that desire and energy within you. Yes, move the guy, you should bust sometimes, no doubt. However, see, that's another thing. Some say if you don't come, you increase personal power. Others say if you do come, you increase personal power. You have to find what works for you. What I can tell you is a lot of those philosophies came from people other than Africans who were basically creating a system that worked for their people. Just that doesn't necessarily mean it worked for us. Remember, in Kemet, they had temples of sex. They had the temple of men for men, and the phallic symbol was the symbol of that temple. And they learned how to be masters. They learned how to raise the men's staff. They learned how to cultivate the energy, and they also learned the proper way to release that energy. Okay, in Kemet, they didn't withhold their ejaculation all the time. I'm not saying you should bust off every time you have sex. No, you shouldn't. What I'm saying is there comes a time that you do have to ejaculate and release the semen. If you don't, how is your partner going to get the elixir of immortality? Do you understand me? We're dealing as vampires, we're dealing with the absorption of energy of an individual to increase your own energy, to increase your own consciousness. So if your partner has cultivated that energy, specifically held that energy back for you, and releases that energy through the bodily or sexual fluid, and you're able to partake of it, then how much more are you going to increase your energy, personal power, etc., etc., etc.? Do you understand the difference between the systems? In Vama Marga, the one of the oldest forms of Tantra, they didn't hold that shit back. They would cultivate it, and then they would come certain times a year, every 3 months, let's say, and they would perform the act, the ritual, and they would ejaculate. You can release it without releasing the eternal light, but that's if you're doing it for yourself, meaning you can do it with a partner. But if you're in Vampyre magic, I'm not talking about Tantra, I'm not talking about Indian. What I deal here with is mostly left hand path vampiric magic. Your mission as a vampire is to absorb sexual energy from the person or partner you're with to increase your own sexual energy, power, and consciousness. So the task is to get the elixir of life to be released, not to hold it, not to cultivate it, for too long of time. Cultivate it for certain amounts of time. And if you have a partner that you work this magic with, you release it and they release it with you. You're exchanging that energy, absorbing that energy, and raising it up. As opposed to finding a partner who's not aware of this, not into this, and you take the energy or they take the energy from you. That's really what happens. If the partner you're with is not on the same level consciously as you, then 9 times out of 10, if they're on a lower level, they're going to drain you and take your shit because they have no idea what they're doing when they're doing sexually. They're doing it for more selfish gratification. Although they can tell you they love you, all this other bullshit, they're doing it more for selfish gratification. So they're going to take from you. So all the work you did is going to be for naught. I go over these tantric things because I studied that and practiced that for years. So I understand the whole ejaculation, ejaculation. I don't believe a lot of that shit because in African temples and certain African systems, it wasn't about holding the shit in. It was about cultivating and releasing it with your partner at the right time that you two declared. Okay? Then you have people like Moata Ashby who come later, who was initiated by a Dravidian, and then twist the whole ancient sexual system of Kemet as if they never did these things. When there is papyruses that prove that the Egyptians have sexual schools, that they did release sex, that they did have what they would call the sacred woman, okay, that would do this act with certain priests and different things of that nature. You got to find which path you're working with and what you want to accept as being reality to you and what is not. This is why there's various systems and various teachings out there. But what system are you working? I work with vampiric magic, which its roots is found in Kemet, which is also tied into ancestral reverence. Necromancy is tied into sex magic. Okay, it's tied into witchcraft, particularly African witchcraft. Okay, so we utilize any and every system to cultivate your energy, but also empower yourself and absorb energy from all others. That's the difference between that. So you can release it without releasing the internal light, but at certain times, if you have a partner and you're both trying to raise yourself up, yes, you can release it by releasing the internal light, but you're also receiving the internal light from your partner who's done the work to raise it up, to cultivate it, and bring it into you. And you both raise up your kundalini, raise up your consciousness, and you both absorb the elixir of immortality to extend your life. That's the difference when you work vampire magic as opposed to, well, there's the internal ejaculation, there's this system. Listen, I have buku books, and I learned from buku people who actually were tantric masters, all these different things. There's brother Sunyata Saraswati, who actually lived down there in South Florida, who wrote a book called Jewel Within the Lotus, or Jewel in the Lotus, that is actually written by a brother who actually was initiated and learned all these systems. Okay, and he teaches you a lot of insight on how to master your shit, how to hold that shit in, how to release that shit in, how to do all that stuff. Okay, but you still have to find what works for you. Now, I choose to be happy. When you say you've been there and done that shit, what shit in particular have you done? Have you done the cultivation of that energy? Have you done the release and mastering of that energy? Have you tasted the Amrita or the Soma? Have you tasted the Mahfuzet? That's the question. Anything that you have within you when you are with a partner is exchanged into that person. Your DNA is exchanged into that person. They synthesize and absorb that DNA, and whatever's in you, they're going to feel, they're going to go and have their own issues with what you're going through. So in other words, if you are straight psychotic and this person you had sex with, you didn't know they were psychotic, all that's going to pass into you. I'm not saying you're going to become psychotic, but you're going to feel episodes of what they feel like, of what they think like, of their toxicity is going to pass into you and things of that nature. And you're going to feel all of that. This is why you cultivate with your partner. You detox, you cleanse, things of that nature. You work that shit. You got to find a partner that you work with. Some of y'all may have 2 partners, whatever. Just make sure that y'all ain't out there freestyling. Because then the more you freestyling with a bunch of people, the more you're exchanging that DNA, the more you just passing that shit back and forth and poisoning each other. Period. All right, a few more questions, then we're going to close off. A few more questions. That's because if your partner drains you, the partner was not on the same level as you. Spiritually, they may not, and consciously, they may not be on the same level as you. And when that happens, there is going to be a drain. And it could be an excessive drain. But usually it's because your partner is not on the same spiritual level as you. What they have physically, money, finances, cars, education, is irrelevant. Spiritually, consciously, where are they at? And I don't mean this external consciousness, oh, I'm aware that I'm the original this. I'm talking about internal consciousness. Have they dealt with their issues, their problems? Have they dealt with their wounds, their pain? Have they learned how to master their habitual bullshit that is detrimental to them? That's what I'm talking about. When you learn to cultivate that, when you learn to master and control that, and then you have a partner that you work with, there's less of a drain and there's more of an exchange of elevation, an exchange of power, exchange of energy, exchange of consciousness. But usually a drain occurs because the partners are not on the same level or near the same level of consciousness and spirituality as they should be. So most people end up with partners just because they're horny, want to get their shit off, with partners who just fuck it up. They're fucked up and you just end up doing it because you horny and then want to make every justification that you fucked up because you was horny. Yeah, you definitely, the partner needs serious chakra work. That's people, like I said, I keep repeating this over and over. People think sex magic is just getting your shit off with another partner. That's not sex magic. Sex magic, you should, 1, have a goal. 2, you should have an intention. 3, you should have a desired result. 4, you should have done the work. 5, you should be on a similar conscious and spiritual level before you even go forth. So understand, it's not just about the busting off. It's, if you're going to listen, if you want to experience or taste the elixir of immortality, the elixir has to be within this individual. That individual has to be of a cleaner, pure state. I'm not talking about some spooky pure shit. I'm talking about they have to have detox their body, cleanse their body, balanced diet, exercise, things of that nature. They just can't be somebody who look good but don't do nothing internal. No, internal alchemy, I'm talking about mental alchemy, spiritual alchemy, or internal alchemy, meaning physical body cleansing. The shit has to be worked out. Okay? It has to be worked out. All right. See, Smooth God, you hit me with that question. Ooh. All right, anyways. What do you think about sex outside of the race? All right, anyways. All right, I'm going to just answer like this. Me, personally, I love my people. And when I say my peoples, I'm talking about Nubian people. When I say Nubian people, I'm talking about people who are melanated, whether it's light melanated to dark melanated. Okay? That would be your blacks, your Latinos, which a lot of Latinos are of African descent as well, just mixed with a couple other things. That's what I love. I'm not particularly overly attractive to outside of that. I'm not attracted to things outside of that on a regular. Now, trust me, I done seen some of these other races, and you'd be like, damn, sexy and all that. That's being real with yourself. Yes, there could be some Caucasian women that are sexy. There could be some Asian women that are sexy. But is that what I am fully attracted to? No, I'm attracted to. What I say is, if that's your choice, so be it. If you would like to experience someone outside your race, so be it. You're here and living once. Right now, in this life, you're living once. Experience all you can. But do I promote it? Do I love it? Do I want that for myself? No, no, and no. But if people want to, that's all good. That's on them. Experience what you want. Enjoy what you want. That's how I look at it. All right. One more question and we're done. All right. So while I'm waiting for the last question, let me write some of these books that I was coming from. All right. All right. All right. You can. This is the last question I'm gonna take. You can do practice consistently with one intent, but don't be excessive with that intent. What I mean is, there comes a point where you should just say, "So it is done." Meaning, if you have a certain ritual, some rituals you may have to work harder, longer. So let's say you do one for 7 days, 14 days, a month, 2 months. You should set the intention by knowing yourself within what you really need, knowing the obstacles, blockages you have. You'll know if you have to work something longer or shorter. Once you do that, then you set the intention. I'm gonna do this ritual for however long, whatever works for you, and then let it go. So shall it be. It's done. So yes, you can work for a period of time with a certain intention, but eventually you have to let that intention go and do its work. Because sometimes when you overwork an intention, it means you really don't trust that you're going to get the results. Eventually, you have to trust that the work has been done and the results will manifest. But last thing for that note, when you do your ritual, you must do the second part, meaning you can do your ritual. That's the spiritual work. That's the mental work. But you have to do the physical work to make that happen. For in other words, for y'all, just dealing with sex magic, if you want a sex magic partner, you can do the ritual to bring them in. But what are you doing in the physical to bring them in? Meaning, Are you just doing the sex magic rituals and you think they're going to knock on your front door? No. You got to go out, socialize, interact, meet individuals, things of that nature. That's how it works. All right. So this is the last part. As y'all heard, unfortunately, due to time constraints, lectures, classes, live videos, personal things in life, we're no longer having the radio show, Awakening Universal Minds, talkshoe.com. It's indefinitely been canceled. All right. So if you want more information, contact me at darkoccultist99 at outlook.com. I as well, I'm working on doing a curriculum or a class for Vampyre magic, for Vampyre Coven, for those who want to come together and practice Vampyre magic together. All right. Which, like I said, Vampyre magic includes Kemetic magic, African witchcraft, which has voodoo and all these things people like. Tantra, it has ancestral reverence. Okay, working with your ancestors. It has all that in there. Okay, so I'm working on bringing a coven together so we can do that work. Eventually, Smooth to God, I'm going to possibly start up another radio class, but not right now. I'll let y'all know when. I'll send it out. So if y'all want information, stay in touch with me at that email. All right. But I'm out of here. It's time for lunch. Time to eat. And it's hot as heck out here again in Florida. 93 was super humid. All right. Peace. Yeah, everything is still up there on talkshoe.com. It's just the show is canceled for a while or indefinitely. So you can still find that on talkshoe.com, all the archives. All right. But anything else, I'll let you know if we do start up a new class or anything else. All right. Peace.